In a valley between two mountains, there lived a farmer named Taro. His farm was small, just enough land to grow rice and vegetables to feed his family. He had a wife, a young son, and a water buffalo that helped him plow the fields. Taro was not a wealthy man. His house was simple, made of wood and thatch. His clothes were patched many times, but every morning when he woke before dawn, he would stand at his doorway, look out at his small farm, and whisper the same words, "I am grateful." His neighbors thought this was strange. "Grateful," they would say. "For what? Your farm is tiny. Your house leaks when it rains. You work from sunrise to sunset and barely have enough." Taro would smile. "I have enough," he would say, "and for that, I am grateful." One autumn, a terrible storm swept through the valley. The wind howled like a wild animal. Rain came in sheets so thick you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. The storm lasted 3 days. When it finally passed, Taro walked outside to survey the damage. His heart sank. Half his rice crop was destroyed, the stalks beaten flat into the mud. The roof of his house had a large hole torn through it. And worst of all, his water buffalo, his faithful companion who had worked beside him for 10 years, was gone. The storm had frightened it, and it had broken through the fence and run away. The neighbors came to offer their condolences. "What terrible luck," they said, shaking their heads. "First your crops, then your roof, now your buffalo. How will you survive the winter? This is a disaster." Taro stood looking at the muddy field, at the broken fence, at the damaged roof. His son stood beside him, holding his hand, looking up at his father's face. For a long moment, Taro said nothing. Then he knelt down, took a handful of the wet earth, and let it run through his fingers. He looked at his son and said quietly, "We are still here. Our family is safe. For this, I am grateful." The neighbors walked away, muttering that the storm had damaged Taro's mind as well as his farm. That evening, as rain dripped through the hole in the roof into a bucket, Taro's wife asked him, "Husband, are you truly grateful? Or are you just pretending to be strong for our son?" Taro looked at her honestly. "I am afraid," he admitted. "The winter will be hard. We have less food than I hoped. The work ahead will be difficult." He paused. "But we are alive. Our son is healthy. We have hands to work and strength to rebuild. These are not small things. If I spend my energy being angry at what the storm took, I will have no energy left to care for what remains." His wife was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Then we will rebuild together." The next morning, Taro began the work. He patched the roof with materials he could find. He salvaged what rice he could from the field. He fixed the fence. Without the buffalo, the work was much harder. His body ached in ways it hadn't before. But each evening, he would sit with his son and say, "Today, we did good work. I am grateful." Word of Taro's situation spread through the valley. One morning, a neighbor appeared at his fence. It was old Mr. Sato, who lived on the next farm. "I heard you lost your buffalo," Mr. Sato said gruffly. "I have 2. You can borrow 1 until you can afford your own." Taro was stunned. I cannot pay you." "Did I ask for payment?" Mr. Sato replied. "Just bring him back when you're done." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "You've always been a good neighbor. Even when my own crops failed 2 years ago, and everyone said I was foolish, you never spoke badly of me. This is just returning the kindness." The next day, another neighbor brought firewood. "For the winter," she said simply, and left before Taro could thank her properly. Then another brought seeds for next season's planting. Another helped repair the roof properly, Slowly, person by person, the community came together. Taro's son watched all of this with wide eyes. One evening, he asked his father, "Why are people helping us?" Taro thought carefully. "I think, when you are grateful for what you have, even when it is small, people notice. Not because you say the words, but because of how you live. We never treated others as if we were better than them, even when we had more. We never spoke bitterly about our lot, even when things were hard. And perhaps that is a kind of seed we plant without knowing it." Winter came, and it was indeed difficult. But Taro's family survived. They had less rice than usual, but they had enough. The house stayed warm, and the borrowed buffalo worked the fields faithfully. His son looked up at him. "Father, do you think our buffalo will ever come back?" Taro paused, his hand full of seeds. For a moment, he felt the old ache of loss. Then he looked around, at his recovering field, at his repaired home, at his family working beside him, at the neighbor's buffalo that had helped them survive. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Doesn't that make you sad?" Taro knelt down to his son's level. "Sometimes," he admitted, "I think of our old friend often. But look around you. We survived the worst winter we've ever faced. Our neighbors helped us when we needed it most. We learned that we're stronger than we thought. Would I have learned these things if the storm had never come?" His son thought about this. "So, the storm was good?" "No," Taro said firmly. "The storm was the storm. It took things from us. That was real. The loss was real. But," he picked up a handful of soil and let it run through his fingers. "Even after the storm, the earth remained. Our hands remained. Our will to plant new seeds remained. And that was enough to begin again." He stood and placed his hand on his son's shoulder. "That is what gratitude teaches us. Not that bad things are secretly good, not that loss doesn't hurt, but that even in loss, something always remains. And if we can see what remains, rather than only what was taken, we can always begin again." That evening, as the sun set over the valley, Taro sat outside his house. Mr. Sato came by to check on the borrowed buffalo. "You can keep using him as long as you need," Mr. Sato said gruffly. "Thank you," Taro said. "Your kindness saved us this winter." Mr. Sato looked uncomfortable. "You'd have done the same for me. You did do the same for me 2 years ago, when I needed it." He paused. "You know, people in the valley talk about you. They say you're grateful even when you have nothing." "Not nothing," Taro corrected gently. "I never had nothing. Even after the storm, I had my family. I had my hands. I had neighbors like you. That's not nothing." Mr. Sato grunted and walked away, but Taro noticed he was smiling. Years later, people in the valley would tell the story of Taro, the farmer who remained grateful even when the storm took everything. Some said he was blessed because his gratitude brought him good fortune. But Taro never told it that way. Gratitude, he would say, doesn't prevent storms from coming. It doesn't guarantee that what you lose will return. But it teaches you to see that even after the storm, you are still standing. Your hands still work. Your heart still beats. And that, just that, is always enough to begin again. He would pause, looking out at his small farm. The question is never, will I get back what I lost? The question is, can I see what remains? Because what remains is always enough if you're willing to see it. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs this reminder. Subscribe to Unhurried Voice for more stories that challenge how you see yourself and the world. Thank you for listening. Until next time.